There are interactions in this game that were unheard of when this game was first released. Interactions that can be used in exploitable ways that can give you extreme advantages over your enemies. Today isn't about something we've ever seen before until just recently. This video is about an equipment that has the capability to do unimaginable things. This time, we're discovering the Sawmerang. The Sawmerang is an equipment that shoots 3 saw blades in a fan pattern. Each saw blade deals 400% damage on the initial hit with a 1.0 proc coefficient. However, while the saw blades fly back towards you, the return hit will deal 100% damage per second with a 0.2 proc coefficient, but also inflicts bleed on every single hit. It can create good bleed stacks to finish enemies off, and its cooldown is fairly low at 45 seconds. This equipment is without a doubt a very strong equipment that can carry your damage for a fair portion of the game. An equipment that can contribute to triggering Deathmark with its blade effect, proc any of your items multiple times, and can proc bans due to its 400% damage initial hit. So what takes this equipment from being good to great?
A crimson mist is so nutritious! It's a scarlet slice!
For the first interaction that Saw has, we need to look back at one of my past videos, boss skipping. We've learned in the past that Sawmerang has the ability to boss skip an enemy. A boss skip is when projectiles fly through the boss's hitbox at the same frame that the boss spawns in. What this does is remove the boss tag from the boss enemy, meaning if it were a teleporter boss, the TP item would drop without actually having to kill it. Now this does seem pretty inconsistent when it comes to teleporters. How are you supposed to know where the boss is going to spawn in a normal run? Well, there are 2 major cases in which this boss skip can be performed consistently. The first is on the Alloy Warship unit. You can control when AU spawns in by destroying the last egg that is needed when you want to. This means you can time when the saws need to be thrown into the predetermined spawn location that AU has. Throwing your Sawmerang out about 2 seconds after destroying the last egg will allow you to boss skip the Alloy Warship unit, granting you the free red item without even needing to fight the boss at all. Now this second boss skip can mean life or death. You are able to perform this same skip on the 4th phase of Mithrix. Mithrix phase 4 is able to be boss skipped in the same way any other boss can be. If you can kill off phase 3 Mithrix and have your saws hover over the spawn location of 4th phase Mithrix, you're able to bypass the item steal phase, meaning you can use every single item you have collected against Mithrix during that final phase, securing an easy victory. Now these boss skips are neat, but might not be something that can be done in every run. These skips are very powerful, but what makes this specific equipment do unimaginable things? Well, let me introduce you to Sawtech. So we know that the Sawmerang's movement acts as a boomerang. You throw it and it'll come back to you. We also know that the saws that are thrown are solid objects which will collide with terrain. This begs the question, what happens if the saws aren't able to make its way back to you? What if they get stuck? The saws will always try to go back to you, but if they get stuck behind something, they'll remain there. Currently in the return period, they're stuck dealing 100% damage per second with a 0.2 proc coefficient on each hit, and constantly applying bleed to anything that touches them. Sawtech trivializes some teleporter boss fights if you're able to force a scenario where the saws are stuck behind terrain while also hitting the enemy. This has all been discovered years ago by now. There was always a missing piece of the puzzle that was never solved until very recently. And the person to solve it was everyone's favorite grandpa, Disputed Origin. Disputed, myself, and many other content creators have been hosting Risk of Rain 2 racing events, where we compete against each other and try to put out the fastest time possible for each of our runs. The drive for tech discovery has really started booming after these events started, and it gave us the need to find things we've never discovered before in order to get an edge. Being driven enough, Disputed was able to find a way to use Sawtech against Mithrix.
You ever just feel like cutting somebody? Me too. I love cutting people. But today I'm going to show you how to do it the legal way. To do the Sawtech on Mithrix, it's recommended you have 2 or 3 fuel cells, but it's not a requirement. In order to do this, we're going to be using this specific pillar. Notice how it's just to the left of the planet in the background. It's very important you use this pillar, the other ones will not work. So the first thing you need to do is get through phase 1. Unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do with Saw here since pillars don't spawn until phase 2. Go through phase 2 normally. Phase 3, once he's at about 75% health, Mithrix will jump to the center of the arena. When he does this, stand right between the Saw pillar and the other pillar directly next to it. Mithrix will run at you and do 2 or 3 attacks. Just survive and stay in this area. We want him to be in between these pillars. If he's too close to the center of the arena or the edge, it won't work. Once he starts his pizza attack, very carefully move back and throw as many saws as you can between the rock and the pillar. Then immediately move under the ramp. This can be really dicey sometimes. It's hard to see pizza and you'll likely be attacked by lunar enemies while this is happening. Dodge as much as you can, but we need to stay in this general area. Once Mithrix is done with pizza, he'll run directly into the saws. The reason I recommend having fuel cells is because the more you throw out, the quicker it will stack bleed. With fuel cells, you can probably end phase 3 here and now. It's very, very effective, regardless of your items. Sometimes Mithrix will get stuck in the wrong corner. If that happens, move forward and make micro adjustments, moving around this general area. Avoid making big movements. Going too far in any direction will allow Mithrix to break free. Now, there are some variations of the setup depending on the difficulty. This first one should work from Drizzle all the way up to Eclipse 3. Eclipse 4 Mithrix moves faster, and that complicates things a little. Eclipse 7 makes him attack at a different frequency, so it's slightly different, but luckily it's a lot more consistent than the Eclipse 4 method. Again, throw the saws between the rock and the pillar, and you go under the ramp, Mithrix will run into them, yada yada yada, you get the idea. Now, unfortunately, you get a lot fewer bleed stacks in Eclipse 7 and 8 since Mithrix jumps to the center of the arena a lot more frequently, but it's still very effective regardless. That's pretty much it. Thank you, Cap, for letting me show this off. Ta-ta for now.
Make sure you give this video a like if you found it informative and helpful. If you want to learn more crazy stuff about this game, make sure you subscribe and check out some of my past videos and guides. And leave a comment if there's something that totally caught you off guard. Thanks for tuning in to this tech discovery.